This is Aisha Abid, the ambassador for Bridge from Pakistan. Today, I am honored to have with us Dr. Saima Eman in this episode of Bridge Writers in Conversation. So, telling about Miss Saima Eman, she is a PhD scholar and she has two bachelor's and two masters by research degrees in applied psychology. She's a certified human resource professional from NUST, Pakistan, and her research interests include social and human rights psychology, including emotions, personality, psychology with English literature, dementia, environmental psychology, and coaching psychology. Currently, she is also an assistant professor in Lahore College for Women University in the Department of Applied Psychology. And finally, she has an abundant experience in volunteer work, conferences, and publications. Welcome to the Bridge, Dr. Saima. Thank you very much for being with us. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for that long introduction. I don't think it was needed, but thank you very much for that.
It was definitely needed. Our viewers had to know that you're such a great person. Ma'am, you have an extensive experience in psychology and education. Would you like to please shed some light on your journey towards and beyond this?
I like writing when I was very young. So I used to write poems. I used to write essays. And one of my essays was published in the News, the Us magazine in 1991 when I was in school. So my parents, they encouraged me to write essays and poems. Whatever I wrote, they improved it. And then I started writing a diary. And I used to express my feelings, regardless of the grammar at that age. But I loved writing, and English was my favorite subject. So this is how I was into writing. But I also enjoyed the roles of the characters, the storybooks. The Enid Blyton storybooks I was addicted to Enid Blyton stories, and my mom literally had to push me off it, and she brought me classics and other books such as Gone with the Wind and the other by Emily Bronte and Charlotte Bronte and all those books. And then the Nancy Drew mysteries, the Fear Street and all those books as well. So there was something that inspired me in fiction. And for example, my favorite one was The Sword of Shannara. So that was my favorite one by Terry Brooks. So I loved reading, and it took me into another world. And I started thinking about the characters and, the funny moments and the funny things. I remember the moon face. That was very interesting. So this journey of writing, it made me think about life in terms of philosophy and then further psychology as a science, because I was interested in the science degree. So I moved towards science ultimately after my bachelor's in home economics, and I also had courses in education and psychology, and I ultimately landed into psychology. And because psychology has a very deep relationship with English literature.
Definitely, definitely. Talking about psychology and philosophy as a subject, how do you think that it has helped you towards teaching? And what kind of teacher are you?
I was a very different teacher initially, but I improved myself. I was very strict and a very, discipline-oriented kind of person. But with time, I developed some empathy, and I, understood other people's situation. And I also went through very difficult life situations myself. So different experiences of life, I could say, they shaped me into a better teacher, an understanding and empathetic teacher. And I think that learning requires, humor, and learning requires stories and the use of literature as well. So I often, tell students stories from dramas and how the different characters, they play roles, and students become very interested in different psychological, phenomena when they hear about different stories that they are watching on different channels of the TV. So that's very helpful for me to teach psychology and the concepts in psychology.
Amazing, amazing. Mommy, you were talking about being a strict teacher, and then over time, you changed and built empathy. You think that psychology and being a teacher of psychology and having a vast experience in psychology has helped you evolve as a teacher and as a person.
Yes, I think that those concepts become clearer as you go through tough experiences in life, as well as when you read more research. So, there's upcoming research in psychology, and it tells about different concepts, and we are continually improving ourselves and our attitudes, our behaviors, actions towards others when we read about the latest research. And it tells us about human beings' personality, their behaviors, and, what best works in relationships. So definitely, psychology does help in understanding different experiences that we are going through, or our loved ones are going through those experiences. So I think that the practical demonstration is very important, and going through certain experiences is sometimes essential to learn essential lessons from life.
I see. Completely understandable. Mom, you have been a part of various conferences. I was reading about you, and there is an abundant experience of conferences. Would you like to share some memorable event with us, something that is still with you?
I attended one of the conferences, which was a multidisciplinary conference, and I presented a poster on The Outsider. So it's a literary piece, and it was the Gothic conference at University of Sheffield. And I still remember it was a very unique kind of conference because I saw that people had built some models and exhibits of different scenes from plays and stories. So that was something really fascinating. And the Gothic, it was also something different, thing. And then I joined the Gothic reading group as well. So that was one of the memorable conferences related to English literature. And it was very interesting for me.
I see. Very interesting. You mentioned English literature, and you know that English literature is a vast field, a vast subject in itself, and you're very much into it. What genre, what is your specific genre that you relate to, and what do you write more of? How does the writer in you see English literature?
I usually write poems. So sometimes I used to write essays when I just went out my feelings about something, some social issues. I usually write essays, but usually I have a burst of experiences, of emotions, rather. I would say that I experience, boiling emotions that struggle to manifest themselves. So that is usually in the form of poetry that I use. And I just self-educated myself how to, write poetry. I was influenced by Dragon Book of Verse, but then I tried to write the modern poetry as well. And I learned about visual poems. And I also taught my children about these concepts, how to write poems, stories, summaries, letter writing, but mainly it's poems, poetry. So I'm struggling to improve my poetry as much as I can. I did participate in different poetry competitions. I won't say that I got published easily because writing is something which is very difficult and you can't get published just outright when you write something. But I did took part in different competitions at college level, at university level. So I kept on trying and improving myself.
Interesting. Mom, what about as a person? How do you see psychology, and how do you put your relationships and your general life outside being a teacher into your experiences? How do you manifest within your own life with regards to psychology?
I try to improve myself as a person, as a parent, as a teacher, as a human being in relation to others. So I try to implement those concepts on myself and in the lives of my loved ones. And with respect to writing, I'm writing an autobiography and autoethnography. So I'm trying to understand my own experiences within the cultural context, how I was brought up, and I've used different theoretical frameworks. So basically, I think life is about understanding oneself, and one cannot discover one's personality in the entire lifetime. So personality is so complex and so unique that it is very difficult to understand one's own personality. So I'm continually discovering myself, exploring myself, my life, trying to use my life experiences as a learning experience to improve myself in future.
Splendid, amazing. Uh, I was reading that you have studied mostly overseas in United Kingdom, I suppose. As a teacher, now that you've come to Pakistan and you're teaching in Lahore College currently, how do you transport the qualities in the overseas studies that you've learned, and how do you transport them to your students? And what are some of the flaws that you avoid and you make sure that you don't deliver it here?
I learned a lot abroad. So I learned about professionalism, about socialization, and the writing techniques. So scientific writing and other forms of writing as well. So what I learned was to be, these days there's a movement going on against racism. So I'm still learning. I still attend online conferences and online workshops and online trainings, and I learned that I have to treat everyone equally, and there should be no discrimination. And that is one thing that I've learned from, universities in UK. So, and I think that socialization is also very important. Networking for research, for publication, for collaborative writing, that is extremely important. And one has to be curious, imaginative, and a professional as well. You can't just be judgmental and judge people. We often hear the phrase that do not judge a book by its cover. So the thing that we are prejudiced or biased, I avoid those things, and I try to bring professionalism in my life and in my teaching as well. So I usually encourage students by rewarding them for their performances. So I rewarded one student for good acting in a drama, and I also rewarded them for good performance in psychology. So that is the thing that I brought from there. But and I learned about tolerance as well. So tolerance for diversity, because in our culture, I see that people they have a limited ability to think out of the box. So that kind of thing, and encouraging creativity in students and letting them think more openly. And at the same time, I think that the flaws, I can't think of the flaws at the moment. I don't think that there are any flaws, because I found, so many things that were really good. The love, the acceptance, being an Asian, I was loved and accepted in that culture, and they accepted they accepted me with my culture, my religion. I never faced any sort of discrimination. But one thing is that being understanding, being empathetic, some people are very harsh, and some people can be, it feels that they are just continually examining you or they are testing you. So that is a thing I want to avoid. I want to give people more chances to, express themselves, to show their abilities. And, that is one thing that I want to avoid. I don't want anyone to go through a difficult experience, because some people can be very difficult at times.
All right. So, when it comes to literature and psychology, both of these fields are developing, and there is more awareness about psychology in the present world. At the same time, we are lacking a lot of communication. As they usually say, that the more phones we have, the less communication we are having. As a psychologist, as a person who has been studying literature, how important do you think communication is? And how important do you think it is for people to communicate and understand communication?
I think communication is very important, because problems often occur due to lack of communication or miscommunication. So as we can see the term, misinformation and disinformation, these terms are regulating in the social media, and the recent research regarding COVID-19 misinformation. So misinformation can really affect people's perception, and that is the reason people are not getting vaccinated. So, communication and clear communication is very important, that it should be truthful, and especially who is the communicator. The role of, the position of the communicator is needed. Does it reach the masses? Is it effective? Is it, affecting their minds in a positive way? So visual communication is mostly likely to be influencing people's minds. And then, we should have written communication that is free of jargon and free of complexities, and it should be accessible for the layperson. So communication is very important, and we should set the rules initially on the first day with the class, and there should be mutual consensus that yes, we are going to have these rules. This is how we are going to communicate, and this is how we are going to exchange information. So we need to, complete the loop of communication by repeating things. So often teachers and, some people in higher positions, they get agitated, they get irritated when you ask them the same thing again. But, repeating the thing that you have communicated is important. Or you have, for example, if you're saying something to me and I repeat that question, that would complete the communication loop. Otherwise, there might be some ambiguities, some assumptions, which would create further confusions in the mind of the listener. So those things can cause barriers in communication, and the cultural barriers are also important. So in which culture are you communicating? With whom are you communicating? Does that person understand what you are saying? Is the person comfortable with that kind of language that you're using? So what is the context? So if things are not clear, we should be able to ask those things. We should be able to repeat and say, sorry, I'm unable to understand this and this thing. So I think the main problem in organizations, at work, in education, everywhere we are dealing with different kinds of people. We are dealing with relationships. So when we are dealing with relationships, we should know that communication must be clear. If communication is not clear, there will be problems.
Mom, as we know that you have also contributed to the bridge in our anthology, what would you like to say? What do you think about the initiative, and how do you think that it is going to help the youth get published on a platform?
It's a wonderful opportunity. I must say that it is commendable, and it's a great opportunity for students to take part in it, to polish their writing skills and get published and get their entries in the blogs, online, on the website. So I think that the Bridge team is doing really tremendous work. It's remarkable work what they are doing. The first one was with the Malaysia. I think Malaysia. It was a Malaysia collaboration. Was it Malaysia? I think.
It was really.
And the second one was with America, and now I think they are doing with Nigeria. So I think that networking with the writers across the globe is something we really need to improve the ranking of our university. And it is extremely important that we work with other people around the world, because this is how we communicate about our culture, our values, our norms. And then we have an interesting mixture. There's a comparison of writers across the globe, how different writers are feeling and what they're expressing. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting mix of stories and poems. I mean, this kind of initiative, it must be appreciated as much as we can, because I haven't seen this kind of initiative anywhere else. People have, certain outlets like at University of Sheffield, we have a certain magazine. It's called, I think, Route 54 or something like that. But then there's a kind of competition between different writers. There's no place for special place for Asian writers and a special place for, American or UK. There's a competition in which only those people come in who maybe they are native speakers, or maybe they are very good at writing poems, writing literature and all those things, prose and poems. So I think that giving people chance, regardless of their backgrounds, or having certain, a kind of quota-based system, is something which encourages writer to write, whether it is their native language or not. So I think that this is an opportunity which we must utilize as as novice writers, because later on we would be publishing books with collaborators around the world, and that is only possible if we get this kind of confidence and a sense of self-efficacy that we can do it. And it has definitely given me a confidence that I should keep writing. So I have written 100 poems, but I think that this was the best kind of outlet for me to get published.
Ma'am, in the end, lastly, would you like to extend anything towards our youth? Any advice, anything that you would like to say from our platform?
Yes, I think that writing in an effective way is an art which always has some room for improvement. We must invite criticism to learn rather than taking criticism as a personal offense. One has to strive and not give up at any stage. So it is very difficult to get established as a writer, but not giving up is the clue to success, is a way to success.
Thank you very much, ma'am. In the end, I would like to remind my viewers that Bridge is an absolute platform which is striving hard to facilitate amateur as well as published writers. There is an abundance of creative writing challenges on the website, so please go ahead, visit our website www.bridgethenations.com, and we will see you in our next interview with a very new guest. Thank you so much and have a good day.